This is a tricky assembly to write and deliver. It may not be my most cheerful, and it certainly won't be my most inspiring. It is, though, one that I think is one of my more important. If anything I talk about in it causes you to feel uncomfortable, then do please talk to your tutor, your husband, or any member of the senior leadership team. We are a Catholic school. It underpins who we are, what we do, and how we treat each other. And I'm proud to be the head of this school. Those of you who have been listening to what I say over the last year will know that I speak a lot about love. When I was speaking to all staff at the start of this term, I was reflecting upon what makes Prior, and I said, the value, the thing that makes us who we are, that sits at the very core of everything that makes Prior Park function, is love. All our other values are underpinned by love. Our focus on fairness exists because we love young people and want to treat them fairly. Our focus on humility is because we love ourselves and don't want ego to take over. We focus on resilience because we know the challenges that wait for the young people we serve, and we want them to be ready to meet those challenges. We trust each other, a trust that comes from the love we have for our profession as teachers and the love we have for each other as a community. Now, I don't know any other school where love is so important. Equally, I have no doubt that a large part of the reason for the importance of love in this school comes from the fact that we are a Catholic school. It is, though, increasingly hard to be a Catholic school. I hope that all the students at Prior see that our faith does so much to make us the wonderful place that we are. Last week we saw our student-led Red Wednesday, where we raised hundreds of pounds to support faith and religious freedom around the world. In the next few weeks we've got Advent services for each year group as we prepare for the joy of the Christmas season. So much that we do here regarding our faith is fantastic. However, if you think about Catholic education more broadly, the news is often not so good. There is a body called the Independent Inquiry into Child Sexual Abuse, which was set up by the government in 2014 to look into, and I quote, serious concerns that some organisations had failed and were continuing to fail to protect children from sexual abuse. The work that this group does is vital, and it's investigated local authorities, the armed forces, and as well as public and private institutions. In the last few months, it has published detailed reports into both the Anglican and the Roman Catholic churches, and the findings of these reports have been widely publicised in the press. The conclusions of the report into the Catholic Church are shocking, but they are not surprising, and certainly not surprising to me. I want to talk a little about my earlier life. I grew up in southeast London, in a close-knit community. My family's life revolved around our church. I served as an altar boy, and my family went to Mass every week. We got on well with the priests, who would, from time to time, visit our house. As I got older, I was seriously considering a career in the priesthood, a vocation. I joined a faith group which met once a week, ran retreats, and gave me a real sense of community. As is pretty obvious, I didn't become a priest. Instead, I became a teacher. I started teaching history in a Catholic school in West London, St Benedict's, and I stopped teaching there when I was 23. When I think about those 23 years, I knew an awful lot of Catholic priests. Some of those priests were amazing. When my parents separated, my family was deeply comforted by Father Sean Harty, a short, overweight, heavy drinking, heavy smoking Irishman. He helped my mum, my brother and me deal with the difficulties we were facing, and he did so with love at the very core of what he did. However, in those 23 years, I encountered at least 4 other priests who went on to be accused of horrific child sexual abuse. 4. I'm fortunate. None of these priests ever abused me, a fact for which I'm profoundly grateful. They did abuse a lot of children though, often, though not exclusively, young boys. 3 of these priests have faced the justice of the courts and have gone to prison. One of them had a case dropped on a technicality. I wouldn't say that my experience in those 23 years was abnormal. I can't think of many Catholics I know who haven't encountered priests who have been guilty of these sorts of crimes. That's what I mean when I say I was shocked but not surprised by the report by the Independent Inquiry. The abuse of children has been rife in the Catholic Church in England and Wales for decades, and perhaps the most dreadful thing about the report is that it states that the Catholic Church is still receiving more than 100 allegations a year. The question needs to be asked, why? The report is quite clear as to why. For too long, the Catholic Church in England and Wales focused on the protection of the clergy, that's priests, bishops and cardinals, and the Church's reputation. The report says that the leader of the Catholic Church in England, Cardinal Vincent Nichols, did not demonstrate compassion towards victims. When they have been challenged to step up and save young people, the report makes it clear that the changes the Church makes have been laboriously slow, and that they have shown a lack of empathy and understanding towards many victims and survivors. I'm the headmaster of a Catholic school, and I think I'm the headmaster of a great Catholic school, and I am so angry at the findings of this report, and I think we should all be angry about it. Whether you are Catholic or not, this sort of behaviour from the Church is dreadful. We might though question why institutions such as the Church often fall into behaviours that might lead to people being hurt. It is so often about hierarchy. The word hierarchy describes a system in which members of an organisation are ranked according to their status or authority. The world operates on hierarchies. Schools operate on hierarchies. It might seem strange then that I, the headmaster of a school, who might be seen to sit at the top of a hierarchy, should rail against them. Hierarchies aren't necessarily bad, but they are dreadful when those at the top don't defend those at the bottom. If you hold true to the words of Jesus, then hierarchies should be challenged. A Jesuit priest who I know and respect a very great deal said that he thinks that the Sermon on the Mount is extraordinarily subversive. And I agree. It challenges an established hierarchy. Blessed are the hungry, the mourners, the persecuted. In other words, blessed are those at the bottom of society. Where a hierarchy leads to suffering, then surely it must be challenged, as Jesus did in this, his most famous sermon. One of the most passionate and perhaps subtle intellects to challenge the hierarchy of the Catholic Church has been the author Philip Pullman. Many of you will be watching his Dark Materials on a Sunday evening on the BBC. It is exceptional television. The books and the series themselves are filled with criticism of organised religion. In Lyra's world, this organised religion is known as the magisterium. The baddies are the clergy. The book is full of quotes that seem incredibly apt to the way in which the Church in this country has behaved towards the victims of child abuse. In the first book, Northern Lights, Lyra asks her demon, Pantalaimon, the following question: why do they do these things to children, Pan? Do they all hate children so much that they want to tear them apart like this? Why do they do it? That those of us working in Catholic education are asking the same question of some in the Church hierarchy is a sad day indeed. Pullman could be described, and indeed has been described, as unambiguously anti-Catholic. The His Dark Materials series was number 8 on the 2008 Top 100 Banned or Challenged Books list in the US, with Harry Potter claiming the top spot. I think that the books are anti-Catholic and anti-religion in general. They are, though, immensely popular. This popularity comes, for the most part, from the vivid and exciting worlds that Pullman builds. However, the anti-religious message taps into the way that many people nowadays feel about religious hierarchies and organisations. Reading the recent report from the Independent Inquiry into Child Sexual Abuse, I cannot find it in myself to blame anyone who might question, as Pullman encourages us to, aspects of organised religion and their hierarchies. But I am the headmaster of a Catholic school, the head of one small Catholic hierarchy. I'm a Catholic who attends church weekly and who loves so much about my church and my religion. I see towering men and women of faith every day, professing their love and helping others. How can I reconcile the comfort my faith gives me and others with my profound disappointment in how my church has behaved? I'll tell you the truth, it's incredibly hard sometimes. I manage it though by holding on to the fact that the faith which underpins the values of the school I lead is a faith of love. I manage it by questioning the hierarchies and the established order, because that's what I believe the job of a good Christian should be. I manage it through meeting so many wonderful men and women who have taken religious orders. I see how those priests we have at school talk to our young people and give them a message of hope and faith. I see my own parish, where our priest is a wonderfully kind and good man, and my own school, where our chaplain is equally fantastic. Most of all, though, I manage it by leading a school where I see the power of faith every day, a school where lay people, that is, not the clergy, have picked up the burden of providing that leadership. They now provide faith-based leadership because so many members of the church hierarchy have let us down and don't provide it. I've never apologised and will never apologise for leading a Catholic school. I lead a great school which cares for its children. However, I will continue to demand of my church that it holds true to the faith Jesus taught us through the greatest commandment: love one another. Please bow your heads and pray with me. Let us pray for the children, young people and adults whose lives have been scarred, broken and even ended because of the abuse they have experienced at the hands of those whom they trusted and looked up to. Those whose task it was to nurture, care for and protect them, but who cast aside the trust placed in them. May those sons and daughters of God, innocent victims who have suffered so greatly, be restored and strengthened by the power of Christ, who can and God willing will bring inner peace and fresh hope for living. Amen. Have a good weekend.